All right, welcome everybody. It's 1 p.m. Where I am, and we're going to get started with our deep dive into AWS. Looks like a lot of people are joining, so we'll just talk about some introductory stuff while we're giving everybody a minute here to join the class. I really think this is like a second of two parts. If you haven't already taken or seen the other presentation I did, AWS Immersion Primer. That's kind of an overview of a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about in a deeper level today. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do check it out. We go into things that we're not going to talk about here, such as migrations, how to migrate from data centers to AWS. We also get deeper into the security aspects and stuff like that. This class, though, we're going to focus on the foundation services, and we're going to do a lot of demonstrations to show you how to use some of the stuff that we talked about in that immersion primer. So a lot of stuff we just kind of introduced and discussed in that last presentation. In this class, we're going to do a lot more hands-on demonstration, how to use the console, how to log in, how to deploy applications, and all that type of stuff. Okay, so let's go through some introductory stuff while people are joining. Okay, so before we begin, let me just talk about some the housekeeping type of things. You can certainly type your questions in the chat. We don't recommend that you do unmute your mic and talk because it's going to be a lot of attendees and it's going to get really noisy with all the background noise. So we recommend that you just type your questions in the chat window. And there's a person online who's going to be summarizing the questions for me and sending them to me at the end of each section. So we'll pretty much save the the questions until we get to a good break time after a section, and then I'll address the questions at that point. But feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Again, any repeats is okay. We'll just kind of summarize them and make sure we get everybody's questions answered. Okay, also there's a recording. So if you get a phone call or something like that or have to step away from the meeting, that's going to be fine. You're going to be able to listen to the recording later on. That's the same as the previous program that we did. The recording is available online in case you want to listen to that again, refresh your memory about the things we discussed at that presentation. Okay, so let's start introducing myself here. My name is Wade Gilchrist. I do this AWS training pretty much every week. I'm at a bunch of companies usually every week. I'm at some kind of Fortune 500 company or government organization or something like that doing AWS training. It's a very, very growing field right now. Everybody wants to migrate to AWS. So I'm sure you see with your own consulting practice, a lot of customers are trying to make that move. And the real smart companies are looking to hire consultants, of course, but they're also looking to train their people internally to understand, how to keep it operating and stuff like that. So there's lots of courses that, that I give. Some have to do with architecting, or some have to do with operations or developing, all that type of stuff. I am actually a consultant, have been a consultant for the past 20 years. AWS training is part of my consulting practice. I also do custom development, custom application architectures and deployments, cloud migrations, that type of thing. There's also, I'm also an author. I'm published on PACT. I have 2 titles there right now, Designing AWS Environments, as well as AWS for Administrators. Okay, so for this program, these are going to be our desired learning outcomes. Basically, we're going to learn how to use the AWS SDKs for services, to integrate services into your application, services such as S3. The program is sort of tilted toward developers a little bit, but it's also great for architects and operations people as well. The thing is that with regular training classes, you don't always get exposure to the SDKs, and if you really want to do something on AWS, you have to be able to launch an application, right? And you want that application maybe to leverage some of the powers of AWS. So that's why we want to show you how the SDKs work and how to integrate those. We're actually going to have a sample application that we're going to use throughout the program. So we'll show you an application that's using the S3 service and then how we deploy that. So the other outcome is going to be how to choose the correct EC2 instance type for our application. Then we're going to learn how to launch an instance and deploy the application on it. Then after we do that, we're going to make it a little bit more highly available and more fault tolerant by getting a load balancer to distribute requests for our application across multiple EC2 instances. Then we're going to learn how to horizontally autoscale our environment so that when we have variations in the requests to our application, our environment's going to automatically scale out. And then finally, we're going to talk about Elastic Beanstalk and do a demo on Elastic Beanstalk, which kind of shortcuts a lot of the manual process and has a service that basically can create a good workable environment for your application and deploy your code automatically. Okay, so the outline for today's course is, first of all, we're going to talk about getting set up. Getting set up basically means, getting the credentials that you need, creating an IAM user, and then a development environment, and then we'll go through the SDKs, and basically how do you install the SDKs and leverage them in your applications. We're going to talk about using S3 for storage because our application is going to use S3 for storage. And this is pretty much one of the most common things an application will do on AWS, is that it'll allow uploads or downloads of content that is stored in S3. Then we're going to go through deploying an EC2 instance, and we're going to again use that for our application. So we're going to deploy an instance and our application on it. Then we're going to show you the application running on it. Then we're going to expand that into an environment that is a lot more robust. We're going to use elastic load balancing and auto scaling, and then we're going to end the program today with Elastic Beanstalk. It is targeted to go about 4 hours up until about 5 o'clock. We're going to take some breaks though, so don't worry. We'll probably try to take a break about once an hour. So we don't want people to have to leave to go to the bathroom or something like that. Just hang in there and we'll be calling a break so that you can not miss anything. Okay, so let's begin with the first section, getting set up. So getting set up involves creating an IAM user. And now this, believe it or not, is a step that a lot of people skip. And the reason why they skip it is because when you open an AWS account, that is just by going through Amazon and signing up for an AWS account, they give you a password to log into the management console. And you can use that password to do everything. As a matter of fact, that account is called the master account or root account. Now that's when you have your own account. Now if you're working for a company or an organization or for one of your clients, you're not going to have access to that. That's just given to the person who opens the account. So you're going to have to create a regular IAM user account. But the reason why I said a lot of people skip this is because when they have their own personal accounts or when they have an account just for a startup or a small company or something like that, they just use the root account because it already has full permissions. However, we're going to talk about why that is not a good idea later. Okay, so the first step is to create an IAM user. Now, IAM stands for Identity and Access Management, and I'll show you that service in the console and create a user for you in just a minute. Then after we create the IAM user, we're going to install the SDK, right? So we're going to have the SDK installed in our development environment, and then we're going to use that in an application. And then we're going to set up credentials, and the credentials are for our development environment to be able to access S3 or the other services that we need to. So we're going to show you those 3 steps to get started.